Let's talk about sagging with implants, whether they're under or over the muscle. So in truth, there's no correct place to put an implant, and there's no place to put an implant that prevents sagging. But here are the things that will play into whether or not your personal implant sags. So the first thing is size of the implant. So larger implants have larger problems. They tend to sag more and be problematic when it comes to malposition. We call sagging inferior malposition. So if your implant is over 350 cc's, that's usually the cutoff we use, you're going to have more trouble with implant sagging. Second thing is weight fluctuations. People that stretch and shrink their tissue repeatedly, the tissue doesn't seem to be as strong and they have more issues with the implant dropping lower than it should be. So the thickness or thinness of your capsule. So just like scar tissue on your skin, the scar your body forms around the implant can be very thin or very thick or somewhere in the middle. If you're someone who makes very thin capsule, your implant is more likely to stretch that thin capsule and end up where it shouldn't be. The next thing is quality of your tissue. Do you have good quality tissue that stays where it should, or do you droop? Sun damage can play into this. Sometimes it's just genetics, stretch marks. If you don't have great quality tissue of your chest, it's less likely to hold the implant where it belongs. Now let's talk about the muscle. Most people that have an under the muscle augmentation don't have a truly under the muscle augmentation. They have something called a dual plane, where we release the lower portion of the muscle. And that allows the implant to sit in a more natural location. Now, when your implant is under the muscle repeatedly pushes on the implant, and it is more likely to cause the implant to fall lower than it should, especially if you have dual plane. This tends to be less problematic when you're totally under the muscle, but that's not as common. And then the last thing I'll mention is people with certain activities, especially high impact like running, they tend to have more issues with sagging. So people in the comments on this video, especially people from that Facebook page, tend to have these absolute things where a type of breast augmentation will always lead to this, will always be more noticeable, will always sag more, and that just isn't how surgery works. There's lots of variables that play into the decision. So when we make decisions about implant placement, it's never based off of one thing. We always want to base it off all of the things. So the person you should listen to is the surgeon examining you, the person who knows what your wishes are, the implant size, the tissue quality, what activities you do, what's important to you from an outcome standpoint, and they will help guide you to the right position for the implant. Just because a Facebook group has a lot of members doesn't mean all those anecdotes translates into expertise. It's important to listen to the person who's treating you.